Something that I've mentioned in quite a lot of my videos is how much I absolutely love the series Digimon Savers or Digimon Data Squad. And that of course includes the Digimon Savers movie, which has Argomon or Algomon as the primary antagonist. So of course I wanted to build an Argomon deck, especially because it has Digimon that are my highlights of Digimon Adventure 2020, that being the first 3 episodes when Argomon gave us a little bit of a nostalgia trip by reminding us of Revenge of Diaboromon or the Digimon movie. So I tried to build Argomon into a Digimon deck, because of course I did. However, a lot of people told me that it was not possible. I tried to prove them wrong, and I guess this deck somewhat works, but it is, it's not necessarily a good deck, but I did give it my best shot, and this is probably the only way an Argomon deck can work. I've tested a few different ways, and this one is almost okay. However, as you can tell by the name of this deck, it being called Everybody Said That Argomon Was a Bad Deck, and yeah, they were kind of right. So I just want to go over a few ways that I made this deck work, but I'd also like to issue an apology to everyone who told me that this Argomon deck would not work, because they weren't necessarily wrong, but the deck somewhat functions, and when it functions, win, yay. When it doesn't function, you just brick pretty badly. So let's take a look at this list. So of course I do have all the Argomon cards in the deck, or the majority of the Argomon cards in this deck, and I guess the one thing that this deck needs is more Argomon support. Hey, if we got an Argomon with Alliance, this deck would actually be amazing, but that doesn't actually exist. But let's see what I've put in. So starting up, of course, we have the Argomon from BT17. This is the Searcher level 3, which a lot of level 3s do have this, and it gets you to reveal the top 3 cards of your deck, and you add 1 Argomon and 1 Rhythm among them into your hand. You return the rest to the bottom of the deck. The Inherited is on deletion, gain 1 memory. And that's kind of a theme of this deck a lot, is gaining memory as much as possible. So we have 1 of the Argomon from BT17. We don't have any of the BT2 Argomon. I just found that this way worked a little bit better. Our other level 3s are non-Argomons. So we have the Lotmon from the starter deck, which once per turn you can give one of your Digimon Alliance. So that is when you give the Alliance, when this Digimon attacks one with Alliance, by suspending one of your other Digimon, add the suspended Digimon's DP to the total, and the Digimon that's attacking gets security attack +1 for the turn. So you're basically attacking with them both together, and that is basically the majority of the deck. It also, because it has Alliance, means that when a Digimon is suspended by effects, it activates Rhythm's ability. So we'll just jump straight to the Tamer. So that is when an effect, so for example Alliance, suspends one of your Digimon, you may suspend this Tamer. And then that means that whenever this Tamer becomes suspended, you gain 1 memory. Then if you have Argomon or a yellow Digimon with Argomon or Greymon in the text, you draw 1. So a lot of the time you're gaining the memory and you're drawing 1 because you're attacking with Argomon, hopefully with Alliance thanks to the Lotmon there. Next, of course, because it's a green deck and I built it, you have the obligatory BT14 Palmon, which is one of your opponent's Digimon gains when this Digimon becomes suspended, lose 2 memory until the end of the turn, and it has the inherited effect of when this Digimon may Digivolve. If you have a green Tamer, reduce the cost by 1. All the Tamers are green, so, oh yeah. Next, you have the Terriermon, which will help you play out a Tamer for cheaper or a Lotmon for cheaper. So the play cost is reduced by 2. This is because Rhythm is a 4-cost Tamer, and so is Mimi for that matter. So you can, if you have Terriermon on the field, you get to play a Tamer for 2 instead of 4. So that helps a little bit. Next we have the Argomon, it's only a 2 of, and this is the one when one of your Digimon moves from the breeding area to the battle area, reveal the top 3 cards, add 1 Digimon or tame a card among them into your hand, return the rest to the bottom of the deck, then you may hatch in the breeding area. So this is kind of a good little staple to have in a lot of decks, especially because it does help you search for the pieces, and a lot of the times I find that this deck does really well when you have the pieces, like I guess most decks, but this one suffers extremely badly if you don't have the pieces, so more searching is better. Next on to our level 4s, we have of course the 4 of BT17 Argomon, which is the one that gets you to play a rhythm for free if you don't have one in play, which that's pretty useful. Again, rhythm being a 4 cost that doesn't really do that much is kind of hard, so the fact that you get it for free in this case is very nice, especially when you're evolving for the reduced cost of 2 when you're evolving on top of an Argomon. So yeah, that is a 4 of and has the inherited of, again, on deletion, gain 1 memory. And a lot of the time you do actually want your Argomon in your trash because of the level 6 BT17 Argomon, which I will get to in a bit. Next we have the Argomon from BT2, it's only a 2 of. It's not fantastic, but it does have Digisorption, which means you can evolve for free if you suspend one of your Digimon. Again, this would activate your rhythm, which means that you can gain a memory from it and draw a card because you'll have an Argomon in play. So again, it's another way to get rhythm to activate and get a draw one and then an extra memory. In a similar way, we have Togemon from BT14, which is a 2 of, which when you play a tamer from your hand by suspending one of your green Digimon, reduce the play cost by 3. Again, that means you get to play your rhythm for 1 memory, but because you are suspending one of your green Digimon, if you have another rhythm in play, you will be able to activate the rhythm and get a memory back. So if you have a rhythm in play, you're already getting it for free anyway, because reduced by cost by 3 and then activating rhythm to reduce it by 1. Unfortunately, it doesn't see the rhythm that is played because it's played after that effect, so you are required to already have a rhythm in field for that to work. But again, you're getting a rhythm for a cost of 1 instead of 4, so that does help. Next, we're back onto the Alliance, so we have EX4 Teremon, which is the one with the lions, and then end of attack, if you have another suspended Digimon, one of your opponent's Digimon gets minus 2000 DP for the turn, which isn't amazing, but you can try to get rid of some Digimon there by reducing the DP and even maybe getting rid of a level 3 if there's a pesky level 3 and you don't want your opponent to be able to build up too much. Then onto our level 5s, we have 4 of the Argomon from BT17, which basically locks down the tamers, and that's because when digivolving to this card, by suspending up to 5 tamers, for each tamer suspended by this effect, reduce the digivolution cost by 1. Now, this means that you can target your opponent's Digimon, you can target your opponent's tamers, but that also means that you can suspend rhythm, and because rhythm has when this tamer becomes suspended, gain 1 memory. If you have an Argomon, draw 1. That means you can just target your own rhythms, especially if you have as many rhythms as possible. You're actually gaining quite a bit of memory and you're evolving potentially for free. It does also mean that none of your opponent's tamers can unsuspend, and this is until it's not on field anymore, and that's during your opponent's turn. So that's pretty handy. You can lock down your tamers and your opponent's tamers, and that can slow them down quite a bit, which is good. And then, of course, when it comes to your turn, you'll be able to evolve into a level 6 and hopefully beat your opponent up with it. It also has the on deletion of if you have 4 or more Argomon in your trash, you may play a level 6 Argomon from your hand without playing the cost. That's very handy. And then it has the inherent effect of by suspending one of your rhythm, unsuspend this Digimon, and that's when attacking. So that is also handy because you can beat up your opponent by it, and also, again, suspending rhythm means you get to gain 1 memory and draw 1 because you'll have an Argomon in field there. So that is fairly handy. I'm sorry if the birds outside the window are coming up on the recording at all, by the way. Yes, they are quite loud. Anyway, so that's handy. Next we have the BT2 level 5 Argomon, which is limited to 1. This also has Digisorption. Again, you suspend a Digimon, evolve for free, but also if you have Rhythm, you can activate your Rhythm and suspend her to get an extra memory and draw a card. Then it does have the, when attacking, of you may play 1 green level 3 Digimon card from your hand suspended without paying its memory cost. Or yes, stonks, I believe the youth would call that. Then our last level 3 is we have 3 of the Antillamon from EX4. This is another Alliance Digimon. It has end of attack if you have 3 or fewer security cards, recovery +1, so top card of your deck becomes your security stack. And then it has the inherited effect of end of attack once per turn. If you have another suspended Digimon, one of your opponents gets minus 2000 DP for the end of the turn, similar to the level 4. And of course it has a reduced cost for evolution if it's a level 4 2-color with green, which the majority of the level 4s are. So we've got obviously that level 4, which it evolves into naturally anyway, and Argomon. So reduced cost, oh yes. Next on to level 6s, we have the BT17 Argomon, which on play when digivolving you may place up to 4 level 5 or lower Argomon cards from your trash of this Digimon's Digivolution cards, then delete any number of your opponent's Digimon whose levels that add up to 4 or less. For every 2 Argomon in this Digimon's Digivolution cards, add 1 to the maximum level you can choose for this fact. This is pretty decent board removal, especially because you will have hopefully a lot of Argomon in your trash, which again, beyond deletion for a lot of them is to gain 1 memory. So the thing is with Argomon from BT17, they're level 5, because it gets you the level 6 Argomon from your hand without playing the cost, you can effectively grab any level 5 or lower to put under that level 6. And of course, something that's pretty cool is that if you have Argomon in your trash as well as this Argomon, you can have the inherited effect of when attacking, play a level 3 Digimon from your hand suspended, and also you have the when attacking once per turn by suspending one of your rhythms, unsuspend this Digimon. Now, while the BT17 Argomon's inherited is just once per turn, the BT2 is not. So you can unsuspend after getting a Digimon because of rhythm, and if you have another of the BT17 Argomon underneath the level 6, you can unsuspend it again because you can activate it as many times as you have the BT17 Argomon underneath it. So pretty good depending on what you have in trash. So it gets pretty big, especially because this Digimon gets plus 1000 for every 2 Argomon in the Digivolution cards, and it also has opponent's turn. None of your opponent's tamers can unsuspend, so you can kind of slow down a lot of decks that way. And again, it can get pretty huge because it's also all turns that it gets that DP plus. So it's assuming you get that out and it has the right evolution stack, you can do some pretty serious damage, especially because, again, if you have lots of these and one of those underneath, you can kind of keep on unsuspending it for however many rhythms you have, and you also get the memory for rhythm being suspended, and of course the card draw. There's quite a bit of card draw in this, but if you get the pieces, you don't have to really worry about decking yourself out, which is cool. It works best if you have really good luck though, oh yes. And then of course our last level 6 is kind of a staple for a lot of decks at the moment, especially green decks, and that is the Medieval Gallantmon from EX8. It has Alliance, it has Vortex, which means that end of your turn you can attack into an opponent's Digimon and annoy a lot of people with that, yay. It also has the when digivolving of you may suspend one Digimon. Again, if you suspend your own from this, you can activate Rhythm, and that means you can delete one of your opponent's to 8000 DP or lower Digimon. For each other suspended Digimon, add 3000 to that DP deletions effects maximum, or yes. And of course, when Digimon are played, you may activate one of this Digimon's when digivolving effects, so you can just do the when digivolving that I just read out again. So that is cool. And also, of course, you can play this for a reduced cost by suspending 2 Digimon, so you can reduce the play cost by 4. Again, if you suspend your Digimon, you can activate a Rhythm to gain 1 memory. If you suspend one of your opponent's Digimon and you have Palmon in field and that Palmon's effect is active, you can play it for a lot less. So you, instead of playing it for 7 by suspending those 2 Digimon, you could play it for even less depending on what you have on field. And if you have Palmon or Rhythm, you can reduce that cost further with either of those effects. So that's pretty cool. Again, it's only an 11k, so it's not completely foolproof. It's not going to be as big as your level 6 Argomon, but you can still do some damage, especially with the when Digivolving effect being activated once per turn when a Digimon is played. Of course, it sees itself when it is played, so you can also just activate that and do some damage anyway, get rid of an ace and maybe get some memory back there. So that's pretty cool. Next we've got a level 7, so we've got our Quartzmon. Again, this is kind of a staple in a lot of green decks. This is just a one-of. It can kind of hurt a little bit depending on when you play this. This is going to be like the card you want to play when you know you can win in either this turn or the next turn, because it does effectively brick the deck completely, because you suspend all other Digimon and all Tamers, then for every 2 Digimon and Tamer in play, you gain 1 memory. But all other Digimon and Tamers other than Quartzmon can't unsuspend. So this basically stops your deck as well as your opponent's deck, except for Quartzmon. So you want to kind of play this as like, I'm about to win, I just need to like stop the opponent just for like a turn or 2. Otherwise, it does hurt the deck quite a bit. So you wouldn't want to play this too early in the game. If it's in your opening hand, I probably wouldn't keep it, because it could be anything else in your hand, and again, you don't want this until like you know you're about to win anyway. Next, our other level 7 is the Algomon Paladin mode, of course, so it's an ace, so you can blast Digivolve it, so you can do it in response to your opponent attacking. It has the on play and when Digivolving of trash all Digivolution cards of all your opponent's Digimon, then return all cards from either your or your opponent's deck to the bottom of the deck. From the trash to the bottom of the deck. And the last part isn't really that useful to me, I've never really used it, but if this effect returned a white level 7 card, gain 3 memory. I've never done that, but it does have that ability too, especially because you're not really doing that too much with this deck, because it's your only white level 7. Maybe your opponent has one, I don't know. Anyway, it does have the when attacking, by returning one of your opponent's Digimon with no Digivolution cards at the bottom of the deck, unsuspend this Digimon, so you can kind of keep on attacking again. That can be pretty useful. It's like all level 7s, you kind of want them as your I'm about to win thing, but it is probably a little bit more useful earlier on than the Quartzmon, especially because it is an ace and you can blast Digivolve it. So those are the Digimon. Up for the option cards, Agility Training, so this is again a kind of a staple. Reveal top 2 cards, take one, bot deck the other one. Then it has the delay effect of one of your Digimon may Digivolving to another Digimon with the reduced cost by 2. Again, it's useful. And then we have Green Memory Boost, which is just a one-of. Reveal top 4 cards, take a green Digimon, bot deck the rest. Delay effect, gain 2 memory. We have one of Green Scramble, would like to be more, would like it to be a 2-of, but it is what it is. I couldn't find anything else to remove. I guess maybe you could remove Quartzmon and put in another Green Scramble, but it is what it is. This is the one of your Digimon may Digivolve into a green Digimon in hand with the Digivolution cost reduced by 3, then play this card in the battle area. Has the delay effect of return if your opponent has a Digimon, I think it is? No. Yeah, so return 1 green Digimon card from the trash to the top of your deck. If you don't have a Digimon, you may play 1 green Digimon card with 2000 DP or less from your trash without paying the cost. Or yes, reading. There's a lot of text on that one, but it's very useful. Again, it's kind of a green staple. Lastly, we have our Tamers. We have the Mimi. This is pretty common in a lot of green decks. It is a mem setter, and it has the main effect of if you have a level 5 or higher green Digimon in play, by suspending this Tamer, hatch 1 egg card to the empty states in the breeding area, or move 1 level 3 or higher Digimon from your breeding area to the battle area. It's kind of just good, it's a 2-of. Then of course we have the Rhythm, which I've mentioned before, it is a 4-of. Now, another way that I saw this deck going, and this was before Medieval Gallantmon came out, this had more of a yellow top end. It had Shine Greymon Burst Mode as the ace, and because it's needed a yellow level 6, I also run the Argomon with Alliance, because again, it has Alliance, but once we had Medieval Gallantmon came out, I replaced the 2 Argomon with the 2 Medieval, and I replaced the Shine Greymon Burst with, I think it was a 2 of, so I think I put in Quartzmon and Imperialdramon Ace instead of the 2 of Shine Greymon Ace. So that is another way that you can run it, again, because it has Greymon in the text. It does activate the rhythm effect there, so you can draw 1 off it, but I feel like Medieval Gallant is a better top end to have. But that is another way you can play this deck. You can also run the Argomon Ace, but 1, I don't have any. 2, I personally feel like Medieval Gallant's a better top end. But you can try that as an alternative. And lastly, our tamer is Shoto. It's a 2 of, so this is the, if your opponent has a Digimon, gain 1 memory. End of turn, by suspending this tamer, one of your Digimon gets piercing and blocker until end of your opponent's turn. If this Digimon has Vortex Warrior trait, unsuspend this Digimon. So the only Vortex Warrior in the deck is Medieval Gallant, but so that part might not be as useful, but the piercing is pretty useful, especially if Argomon is huge, as well as the blocker. But again, you're probably wanting to swing with it anyway. You probably don't necessarily want it to have blocker, because it doesn't matter if it's suspended anyway, but it's huge, so you want that piercing anyway. And lastly, we have our eggs. Now, I kind of ummed and ahed about these eggs because I'm not really sure. So we have the BT17 one as a 3 of, and it has the inherent effect of, while this Digimon is Argomon, it gains blocker. So it is pretty decent. I think I might actually go for 3 of the other one rather than this one, now that I'm thinking about it, because again, I don't really use blocker too much in this, because a lot of the time I'm suspended anyway. And then the BT2 Argomon, which again, I'm thinking of going this maybe a 3 of or a 4 of, and having the other one down to 2 or 1. And this is the one where it has the inherent effect of, when this Digimon becomes unsuspended during your unsuspend phase, gain 1 memory. Again, a lot of the time, your Digimon are going to be suspended in this deck, especially during your opponent's turn, which, depending on how big you are, can kind of be scary, because your opponent might just swing directly into your Digimon. But if it survives, you get some memory off your Digimon, but if it dies, you get quite a bit of on deletion, gain 1 memory anyway, so that part's not too bad. But in any case, that's it for the deck. There's not really much more to say. Is it a good deck? It's most certainly a deck. It definitely is a deck. It definitely exists, and if you are lucky enough to get all your pieces in the right order, it can go pretty well. You can get a lot of memory with this deck, again on deletion effects or using rhythm, but otherwise it kind of needs more Argomon support. Ideally, if we get an Argomon with Alliance, that'd be great, but if it doesn't have Alliance, it's kind of like I have to rebuild this deck, because this one's kind of centered around Alliance, because again, Alliance does activate rhythm. But that's kind of all I have to say about this deck. Everybody said Argomon was a bad deck. They were right, probably, most likely. But in any case, that's it for this video. Let me know your thoughts, comments, or any suggestions you might have about how to make this deck less Bricky McBrick deck. And yeah, so let me know in the comments all your thoughts, comments, etc, etc. I did just want to talk about this deck because I have put a surprising amount of time into this deck. Again, as always, you can read all my comments that I wrote so much of for my planning out of this deck, so any iterations I've kind of specified in the description there. So give that a read, it'll be linked in the video's description. And of course, like this video for I tried my hardest to get something to work. Oh well. Subscribe if you haven't already. If you have subscribed, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your enemies, and of course, I'll see you next video. Bye!